And we're going to start with a video.
Eddie's. I came here today to correct the record about this sport, team handball, and just who it was that started the Army Champs program. There have been rumors flying around that it was a certain general, much lower rank, Westmoreland, who paired up with that New Jersey guy to start the operation. Now, soldiers love to play handball. They love the sting of the ball. When we were kids, we admired the big shooters, the fastest runners, and that's what I saw in the game of handball. After the war in Germany, I saw a game that Americans would love, and I would have created Army Champs myself. Except for one thing. I was killed in a car wreck outside Heidelberg before I could do anything about Army Champs worth a crap. Instead, Westmoreland comes back from Vietnam, hooks up with this guy Buning, and suddenly the Army Champs program becomes a big deal. And no one ever mentions my name anymore. Even though I had been dead for over 20 years, I still had my spies at the Pentagon who informed me that when the Army Champs program was conceived, Westy had this fresco painted on the ceiling of his office, an obvious steal of Michelangelo's creation on the Sistine Chapel ceiling. He probably saw the notes I left and commandeered the sport of handball for himself. Now he thinks he's God, passing the orb of handball to St. Peter of New Jersey. That should have been me on that ceiling. Doesn't everybody know that I'm God? All right, now, you sons of bitches, you know how I feel. I will be proud to lead you wonderful guys into handball battle anytime, anywhere. That's all.
Please welcome your host for the evening, Mark Lockenmeyer.
Thanks everybody for coming, and especially our Olympians from '72 to make it here today, to be with us, and their family and friends and supporters, and the group out of Detroit that's hosting this along with AHA and Mark Wright. Thanks very much. The Army just played, as you saw, a super significant role in handball in the United States. And a little bit of the history is it was during the Vietnam War where a lot of these gentlemen were either drafted, enlisted, went OCS, or went to West Point. And they were asked by our country to go to war and were given this opportunity to play team handball. And a lot of other people went to war and sacrificed their lives for this country. And I think it's important to recognize that fact. And then these gentlemen were able to go on, make the Olympic team, win the Pan Am Games, and go to the Olympics in '72 to represent our country and represent the military. So I'd like to start. We have a video, Mark, that we're going to have right now about a little bit about the Army Champs program. Thank you.
In the summer of 1969, a lunch meeting was arranged between Peter Buning, president of the United States Team Handball Federation and the national governing body of the sport in the U.S., and General William Westmoreland, who had been recently relieved of his command as head of armed forces in Vietnam. Little of what was said at the meeting has been recorded for posterity, but out of it came the Army Champs program.
Team handball combines the skills of basketball, soccer, and volleyball, and is played either indoors or outdoors on a court slightly larger than that used in basketball,
which provided the training and infrastructure needed to take a sport that had been played only in the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area and spread it across the country. Here's a little of that story.
Team handball has become increasingly popular in America, largely due to the efforts of Dr. Peter Buning, one of this country's leading enthusiasts and a former Olympic player.
The game of team handball, which also is an Olympic sport, is called in Europe usually indoor handball, because contrary to the original version of the game, this is played indoor in a gymnasium. This type of handball originated after World War II in the Scandinavian countries.
At a practice session and then an actual game played at the Fort Dix, New Jersey Sports Arena between teams representing the active Army and the U.S. Army Reserve, Dr. Buning and members of the two teams explained some of the finer points of team handball.
So one day I'm sitting in my gym and I get a phone call, and it's a guy named Billy Dove, who was in charge of 3rd Army Sports from the Department of the Army called DA. And Billy told me about this new sport called team handball, and they had selected me as the best athlete in the 3rd Army, and they wanted me to go up to New York to learn how to play. And I remember him saying, with the possibility that I could become an Olympian. And I said, Billy, listen, I got 2 handball courts in my gym. I said, I don't play handball, I don't like handball, I'm not any good at it. He tried to explain to me that it wasn't the same game, blankety blank. We've all heard that story. And we hung up. And the next day, my phone rang again, and I answered it. And my name changed from Dennis to Specialist. Now, when your name changes in the Army, you know you're in trouble. You're called by your rank as opposed by your name. And Billy said, Specialist Burkholz, I want to remind you, you're in the Army and you will go to New York. And we watched for about 15 minutes, and Peter said, okay, you go in there and play that center position there. And I said, Peter, this is what everybody says. I have no idea what I'm doing. He said, that's okay, you'll learn as you go. So I went in and played center back that day against what I, in friendly terms, call a bunch of street fighters. They were kids that hadn't played 20, 22 years old. They'd never played college sports. They were adequate athletes, but adequate is probably the highest order I could give them. And I was by far the best player that day, except for a guy named Sippy, big black guy. He was a left back. He knew how to play because he had played up in Canada. He was good, and Laszlo was playing. We all know who Laszlo was. And he was, then I moved him over to right back, so he was kind of my mentor in that particular day. But after we played, I mean, I was really good to start with, and the other guys, I say this respectfully, were really bad. So I was the best player out there my first day out. And after we got done playing, Peter was all smiles. He had found the cat's meow of the Army Champs program. Not necessarily that it was me, but because the vision of using Army athletes to begin the Army Champs program, the Olympic journey, had just started that day, just because I was the right guy to be there at the right time. And the other thing I remember most is we had two goalkeepers there at the time. They both were our goalkeepers in 1972. And the first one was Elmer Edis. Elmer has since passed away. He was from Hungary, had lived in England for a long time, spoke good English, really a nice guy. He was the backup goalkeeper. And the first goalkeeper was Shandor Revniak, the king, as everybody knows Shandor. He was a great guy. And he could hardly speak English. All he did was sit back there in the goal and cuss and swear at everybody for being bad players. In a good way, I might add. He didn't mean anything bad by it, but he knew no English. And after we got done with practice, he came up and started hugging me and throwing kisses at me. And all he could say was, "Thanks God. Thanks God, we found our first man." And it was a really good feeling, because here the boss man and the world-class goalkeeper loved me from day one. And that was basically my start.
I was stationed out at Fort Dix and involved in athletic programs there and in special services. And they introduced team handball and the Army Champs program. And so I made the team handball team, and we did well. Our particular team won the post tournament, and got invited along with another fellow, Dick Lowe, to start the Army Champs program for the kids. And so that's where I met Berkey and all the Army Champs guys. And Kavanaugh was part of that group too, wrote up a curriculum. Quite a few of the 72 Olympic team were in the military at that time. We all came together at Fort Dix.
All of a sudden we got this order and this massive push to produce 200 sets of handball goals. And I go, well, what are we doing here? What's going on? But so that we could supply handball goals to the Army.
1973, I'm at Fort Sam Houston. My dad's stationed there in the military. And so they say, hey, a new program is starting down at the gym. It's called Team Handball. Well, I didn't have anything to do. I figured, let's go. I'm gonna go down there and see what this is. I jump on my bike, my Schwinn, I ride down there, and I get to the gym, and there's a bunch of kids there. And they explained the game to us. And I said, hey, that's a great game. And they said, okay, so the court players are gonna run up and down the court and try to score and have the best time of their life. We need a goalie that's gonna get hit in the face and maybe the gut and whatever other part of the body to block the ball. And they said, who wants to be goalie? No one wanted to be goalie. So I finally said, well, if we're going to start the game to get it going, I said, hey, you know what? I'll step in the goal. I'll do it for today. 15 years later, 600 face shots and body shots and groin shots, I was still in the goal. But man, was it the best decision I ever made.
One day in 1971, might have been early 72, the executive officer of the battalion called me over to his office, and he said, Captain Thome, I'd like you to organize team handball for the battalion, and we have about a month and a half to do that. And I said, sir, I played handball at West Point. I'm a little claustrophobic, and I found my hand really would swell up. So I really don't have any interest, but I'll help find somebody who loves handball. He said, no, stop, wait. Here's the book. Take it home, read it, and we'll talk tomorrow. So, being a good soldier, I took the book, I went home, I read it, and I said, this is incredible. The reason it didn't survive, not just the Army Champs program, but the Army Champs program in team handball, is because it came down to the post mandated. And so here we had 20, 30-year-old gentlemen running the athletic program at each of the military installations. They had golf, they had softball, they had bowling, they had their handful of 10 or 12 sports that they had been playing and organizing for 10, 15 years. All of a sudden now they're being told, spend some of your money, buy goals, buy balls, find time in the gym to allow teams to come practice and play. So I think it kind of was a sour note in each of their minds and bodies, and they reluctantly allowed the sport to exist on their base. Fort Sill, as I recall, lasted the longest in terms of playing team handball on an installation. Fort Bliss, I think, lasted 2 or 3 more years. So 1974, 75 was the end of the program there at Fort Bliss.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the T-shirt that we gave you today, just some of the significance of some of the things on the T-shirt. On the front, the U.S. Olympic team, this was a T-shirt that was given to all the Olympians in 1972. So if you look at you'll get some pictures on the internet, Steve Prefontaine and some famous Olympians wearing this particular T-shirt. This emblem that we put in the middle there, that was actually the emblem that was on the opening day ceremony blazers for the athletes of the U.S. Olympic team. And I don't know if Dennis and some of you guys still have that blazer, but you may remember that emblem there. On the back here, we have a list of everybody that was on the team. This right side, this team handball picture here, that was the actual picture that was used at the events in Munich that year. So this is a symbol that they used to go to the event for team handball. And then we did put the U.S. Army insignia here just to say that it was the Army Champs program. And then on the bottom, for all the hard work that Mark Wright has done, American Handball Associates, we acknowledge that on the bottom. So thanks, Mark. I want to talk a little bit about our next award, which is the CAVI Award. And it's for the development of handball in the United States. Ray Gerke is a past winner, along with Jan O'Shea, who recently passed away. The people that get this award at this particular time were right at the bottom of team handball. I mean, Ray Gerke, Jan O'Shea, you know, painting floors, recruiting kids, all the paperwork, the insurance, all the work that went into team handball at that time. And it was a lot of work, and it was a passion of love for those people, and really affected a lot of people's lives in a very positive way. And this award, we feel, is one of our best awards that we have. And I'd like to talk a little bit about our presenter, Mike Cavanaugh. Mike is just that person. He was a mentor to me when I first got into team handball. Mike, I never played, went to a tournament in LA, and Mike had me refereeing a game before I ever saw a game or played a game. So Mike, through the years, has been very close to me, and Cal Heat, he mentored me when I ran the Olympics in 1996 in Atlanta. So Mike, I'd like to introduce you to come up and speak and give the award. Thank you.
James John Thome was born March 5, 1943, in Cleveland, Ohio, the oldest boy of 3, answering to an older sister, the family of John and Lillian. After graduating from Our Lady of Lourdes High School, Jim entered the military academy at West Point, graduating 4 years later on June 5th. 3 days after that date, he married Patricia Chupa. They have two sons, James Jr., born in April of 1969, who now resides in Knoxville, Tennessee, and Christopher, who was born in November of 1972 and today lives in Denver, Colorado. Jim served in Vietnam to start his 23 years of Army service, which, thanks to a master's degree in industrial and systems engineering and a PhD in operations research, ended on the NATO staff in Germany. In the handball world, he was always the guy who got things done.
My dad was a factory worker. He could not even afford to get me home for the holidays. I had to work in the cafeteria to make enough money to take a train to come home for Thanksgiving, Christmas. And knowing how he was struggling to just make ends meet for my sister and my two younger brothers, I went to West Point for totally all the wrong reasons. I went there to financially take a burden off my mom and dad.
He was a professor, he was a dean of a college, all the while that he was, he raised a great family, he's got a great wife.
So he was a disciplined coach, he was stoic, he didn't show a lot of emotion. But moving to when he did show emotion, I recall him always getting hyped when there was a Peter Buing team or a Laszlo Uric team. He knew that those were big games for him. And he would tell us, to really be disciplined. Don't do what they do what we do.
Coach Thome was driving, and we were asking him because he was the one we all thought would keep in touch with everybody. And so one guy said, "Hey, Coach, what do you remember about Joe?" And he bit hook, line, and sinker. He said, "Joe who?" And everybody in the van simultaneously said, "Joe Mama." We almost crashed because Coach Thome just turned beet red. And
he also not only coached, but he did a tremendous amount of administration. And he always stood up and took the opportunity to do the hard jobs. So running a tournament, running a sports festival, running, being involved with an Olympic event in 1984 and 1996, he was behind the scenes and doing what was a very difficult task of getting things accomplished.
In 1984, I was selected to be in charge of the VIPs that would be coming to the game, queens, kings, prime ministers who would be walking into the gym in California. And my job was to make sure that they had a nice soft cushion to sit on, that they knew where the hospitality suite was, etc., etc. So that was really a positive experience for me to be able to watch all the games in the 1984 Olympics. And then in 1996, again, I was selected to be with the men's team, and I was the liaison. I was the extra official with the team, men's team, and I was the liaison between our team and the Olympic Committee.
Those of us in uniform, we respected the heck out of him as a person, the integrity that he had when he was able to go back to the academy to teach, again, I think it was math, if I remember right, second time. He was loved by the people he was with. We always knew what we were dealing with. We knew we had a straight shooter.
He made the uniform look great. We were very impressionable. I saw that he was stoic and held his emotions close to his vest. I did that as well as a leader. He impressed upon me his leadership, in which I used in my 21-year career.
So while we knew him as the coach, while we loved him and respected him, we also knew him as the soldier that he was and the example that he set. I've
kept in contact with Jim, over the years, and first of all, he helped me to be able to achieve, success as an athlete, and more importantly, Jim made me a better soldier.
Mark, Mark, nice job on the video so far. Really, really enjoyable. This is one of those things where I should have seen this before I had drafted my talk, because I'm checking them off. By training in my association with the Olympic Committee, they always start their meetings, etc., by having Olympians stand up. And I think we have 3 different Olympians represented, Olympic Games representative. Olympians, please stand up. There's some new people in the room. There you are. Consider yourself recognized. One other person I think is kind of a special person is Dr. Jim Cheatham. There are 2 of us in this room who have a special appreciation for cardiac surgeons. Jim, would you stand up, please? Thank you. Thank you for all you do. All right, typically there's an over-under in how many emotional breakdowns I'll have, but Craig, you got the initial one there in your presentation, so that takes the pressure off me. I've known Jim for 49 years, and I didn't like him for the first 12, I think. When I knew I was going to do this presentation, I sent him a text, and I said, Jim, I know you could put down 200 things that you've done in handball. Just send me about 20, 25. I have before you 5 pages, single-space typed of Jim in his career. So it's up to me to boil that down, but it was pretty easy. And I started thinking, why don't I like this guy? Played against him a number of times. Ohio State, Army, I was with UCLA at the time. Coached against him, nationals, Olympic festivals. And I didn't get his sense of humor at all for, I think, decades. And I do remember that he had a wicked set shot, and I remember Peter Buning as having a wicked set shot. And there's not many of us in the room that have played with Peter. Agreed? Yeah. So now comes the blah blah part, which I can now speed up because the video covered it. But some of this is very remarkable, so it hopes to add some redundancy to it. He got a Bachelor of Science from West Point, Engineering. Master of Science from Ohio State, Systems Engineering. A doctorate, Colorado School of Mines, Operational Research and Movement Science. Pretty good achievements there. The video said he was at 23 years of military service. It was actually 23 and a quarter. I noticed that quarter, Jim. And a whole paragraph to the decorations. And I have underlined here, well decorated, which means to non-military people, he had a big salad on his upper left chest. The one that stood out to me was a Bronze Star Oak Leaf Cluster, and that's given for bravery and gallantry. And they don't just give that out. A little bird once told me that this person made an illegal incursion into an unnamed country and resulted in the largest weapons cache that the U.S. had recovered from our Vietnamese friends. Someone in this room did that. He had 2 teaching faculty tours at West Point, which is very exceptional on its own. He finished his career as a department chair, Dean of Math and Science at San Joaquin Delta College. Married to Pat for 54 years. I have this underlined and circled, God bless you, Pat. You're proof that behind every good man is a great woman. 2 sons, James Jr., West Point grad, successful COO. Christopher, Air Force Academy grad, senior director at Comcast. Yes, I coached his son. Jim, you were a better player than he was. Okay, what does this mean and what does it boil down to? That's 2 kids with an excellent education, and he didn't pay a cent in tuition. Okay, handball. Here's where I started to like Jim, because he talked the talk and walked the walk. Wherever he went, successful programs, starting at Fort Bliss, Ohio State, West Point, Colorado Rockies, Knight Air, distinguished old grads. I want to stop here for a minute, and I know there's some West Point grads here. You started one of the finest programs in the country. Continues to crank out quality teams, quality athletes, quality soldiers. And I've suffered that for the last 20 years. And I do want to correct your resume. There's a mistake. In '02, the Knight Air, which is a combination of Air Force grads and West Point grads, you have it down there that you took the championships in Division II. Check your resume. It was the open division, and I know because you and Kevin allowed me to play on that team as an exception. Okay, he had multiple U.S. Team Handball Board terms, multiple vice presidents of men's teams programs, multiple chair staff, over 10 national championships, chair of organizing and competition committee, court of justice, multiple disciplinary committees, national A-level certified coach. He also took the junior team to a Pan Am event and had a record of 5-1. Chef de mission for numerous international playing trips. He mentioned he was on the '84 Olympic Games staff, '79, '87, and 2011 Pan Am Games staff. By the way, for everyone in this room, I don't think it's generally known that our '87 Pan Am Games teams, men and women, we were the only U.S. Olympic sport to win gold medals in both teams, men and women. Not basketball, not softball, not baseball, not water polo, field hockey, et cetera, et cetera. So that was we really got the Olympic Committee's attention there. Also, he's a member of the 1990 Goodwill Games staff and '96, as he mentioned. There was a handball fundraising event, and these little, what look like stanchions, are actually jock straps. And at this fundraising event, Jim and I got into a bidding war. And finally we realized, listen, why don't you just take it for a year, and I take it for a year, and we'll continue that tradition. So before you come up here, it's here for you. Keeping my word. Here's where now I have about 8 things here that I would say dedicated, highly organized, self-made, intellect, goal-oriented, but mostly my friend. Jim?
Okay, let's get a picture.
Ten more seconds.
Sure.
When I retired, I got this from Jim. It's one of my most prized possessions.
Thanks, buddy. Okay, so I have my notes, which differ a little bit from Mike's. I won't tell the story about Fort Bliss when the Army Champs program got there, because you've already heard that story. But what was very interesting about the Army Champs at Fort Bliss is I had no clue what the sport was. And fortunately, the German Air Force had a school at Fort Bliss. So I walked over there and I told them what my
task was to teach, train, and put on an event at Fort Bliss. And they sat me down in their classroom, brought me in 4 beta tapes, if you all remember beta versus VHS. And I sat in their classroom and watched games of handball, as it, it's what it's known internationally. And that's where I got my introduction to handball. So I'm somewhat connected to 72 in that that's the first opportunity I was given to learn the sport, and then that's where I played my first game with referees who had only done what I had done, and that is they read the rule book. And you can't just referee and read the rule book. You really have to have the experience playing the game as well as then refereeing. I was the founder or co-founder of about 8 different teams, both men and women, over my 50 years. In some cases, what's interesting is that the people found me. For example, when I went to Ohio State University after playing at Fort Bliss, I went into the PE department and I said, "Do you play the sport of team handball here?" And they said, "No. But 2 other gentlemen have been in here in the last couple months, and they asked me the same question." So I left him my name and phone number, and he gave me those 2 names. We got together, had lunch, and that's when the Ohio State team was formed. My first hour, literally my first hour during my first assignment to West Point, I'm in my office, putting pencils and papers and rulers, getting my desk organized for the first time. 3 cadets walk in, and they said to me, "Sir, we understand you have played and coached this sport. We played in intramurals, but we really would like to form a club." And in 1976, that was approved. I was very fortunate. Dr. Peter Buning, whom most of you know, gave me the opportunity in 1974 when I was at Ohio State University to run the national championships. That singular opportunity probably is what gave me and solidified my love for the sport as both a player, a coach, and an administrator. In the year 2000, I was honored by West Point. They named an award called the James J. Thome Senior Leadership Award, which is given generally to a senior who exemplifies leadership on and off the team handball court. There are numerous people I need to thank. Let me start by, first of all, thanking my wife, Patricia, and my 2 boys who were not able to make it here tonight, who supported me during all my handball years and endured my many absences when they had events going on. To Mike Cavanaugh, who's just been unbelievable throughout the 49 years we've known one another in helping me in just about everything I've ever done in team handball. Great person. And I'm honored to be receiving his award tonight. Javier Garcia Cuesta and Krista All. Both of those individuals were also very instrumental in helping me become a better coach. Javier as a coach himself, Krista All as chair of the referees, who would always tell me what I was saying was right or was wrong as a coach. And then thanks to many of my long-standing teams, 6 years with the West Point program, 3 players, Craig Gilbert, who's here tonight, Peter Lash and Mike Thornberry, who went on to become Olympians, that I'm so proud of, and who West Point recently, a few years ago, honored them. And then Kevin Hutchinson, who's sitting over here, he and his wife formed a club called Night Magic, which was an opportunity for West Point graduates to continue playing the sport after graduation. And they asked me to be their coach initially. Then later on, we formed Night Air because we wanted to allow Air Force graduates also to be able to continue to play the sport. And one Olympian, again, Dave DeGraff, was on that team. I've enjoyed all the friendships that I've learned of people who I have met being involved in this sport. I've had the experience of working with an unbelievable variety of people, novices, national team players, Olympians, and I've learned so much from each and every one of them that I can't tell you what that really has meant to me. And finally, I'd like to thank the American Handball Associates Committee for bestowing this honor on me tonight. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim. That was tremendous. I'd like to introduce our next guest, American Handball Associates, Mark Wright. Mark?
Thank you, Mark Lockemeyer, and welcome everybody, and thank you for being the ones who braved the airwaves and pandemics and everything else that kept all those half-hearted handball fans away from tonight's festivities. So we appreciate the fact that you came here and did honor, in this case, Mr. Thome, and are about to honor our other award winner for tonight, Mr. Brokoltz. But here's a little plug for American Handball Associates. We put on this dinner annually so that we don't forget the legacy that got handball to where it is in this country. We were first prompted to make an effort to hold on to that legacy when we discovered a guy that had come in from a sport, let's say, I don't know, triathlon, and came in and said, you know, Mark, I'm really not a legacy guy. And it occurred to me that those who are coming in to run our sport that are not from our sport might forget about that legacy. So American Handball Associates is an organization that is literally nothing but handball players and trying to hold on to that legacy that was established beginning 60 years ago, but also welcomes in what is the future. So I partner, they said, so American Handball Associates is Mark Wright. Well, it's Mark Wright and J.D. Orr, and it's also our senior advisors and a lot of people who care about how handball is presented and how we can raise the awareness of the sport in this country. And to that end, in addition to this annual banquet, we've been doing our best to send out primarily video press releases about various handball activities, both locally and nationally. We're working on developing a national database so that we can contact reporters and writers and not just make everything social media oriented, but really work on people who can write stories and tell the handball story, and it's tough. We tried to get people interested in this event, and you know, it's been tough for us, but we're doing our best just to be out there and saying, hey, look at us. We're handball, and we've got Olympians, and we got young guys in the Midwest playing, and let's pay attention to this Olympic sport. So we're going to show you a brief sample of some of our video press releases to show you what we've been up to during the last year. You might say it all began in May 2019 when they won the U.S. Open Championship in Myrtle Beach, North Carolina. This run of success enjoyed by San Francisco Cal Heat, the premier handball club in the USA. Because of the pandemic, they're still the national champions, and now they're the North American and Caribbean Super Globe champions and veterans of the International Super Globe tournament that each year crowns the best club team in the handball world. To Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, they flew in October after a few days of training in Switzerland, where they competed with the cream of the crop of the international sporting world. Announcing tryouts for the youth beach handball national team for boys and girls. Sunday, March 6th from 10 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. at Seabright Beach, just south of the Santa Cruz Boardwalk. For boys and girls born in 2004 and later, this is the first step in what could be the journey of a lifetime.
Anybody that has played volleyball or doing acrobatics, athletics, and have done other sports as well, like basketball or soccer, they're all fit for this sport.
Learn this soon-to-be Olympic sport, master the acrobatics involved, and see the world. The great game of Olympic handball, or team handball, as it's known only in America, is about to hold its 27th World Championships in Cairo, Egypt. And for the first time in 20 years, the USA will be there. The U.S. is fielding perhaps its strongest team since the games of 1996, a combination of homegrown players like Ty Reed and Gary Hangtime Hines, and dual citizenship players from Europe like Bavarian goalie Renee Ingram and backcourt phenom Abu Fafana. Left wing Sam Hotterstrom grew up in the Frankfurt area playing handball, but he has family in Florida.
Everybody can play handball in our team, so it doesn't matter, it doesn't take long time to play together really well. Just the thing that we're playing for the US is already bringing everybody like really close to each other.
The Columbus Challenge Cup, King of the Mountain in the Midwest.
I'm the king of the world!
In what? Handball, Olympic handball. The sport this country is destined to dominate in the Olympics.
Rated by top of the world!
Watch it grow right here in Columbus, Ohio. Check out the Columbus Challenge Cup. Right now, our top-ranked club team, the Columbus Armada, holds the cup. But a succession of teams are scheduled to come in between now and June to try to knock them off.
Proof of their plans to send an Armada against England.
So what I really wanted to do was just get a situation available for our guys to play a vast number of games over a season, and also have fans available to come watch throughout the season, really see the team progress and play.
If anything, it's a motivator, and at least for right now, it's really nice being number one in something. You know, I love Columbus, lived there for 8 years, and it's really cool to say, you know, Columbus is one of the few places in America where you can watch a team handball game.
Try to send out and get people psyched for our various events. It's a visual world, so we try to stay cutting edge in that sense. And speaking of current events, I'm now going to turn things over to my partner in our AHA efforts, and J.D. Orr is going to speak to you about Midwestern handball.
Thank you, Mark. And for those of you I have not introduced myself, my name is JD Orr. I coach with Team USA. I coach at Ohio State, as well as help facilitate a lot of events throughout the Midwest. So listening to the stories about Jim and everything that he did with Ohio State really laid the groundwork for me. And I know that that was something that I always try to bring up to our guys, that while I might have restarted the club, Jim and some of the people previously had actually started the club many years back. So I was just kind of bringing the phoenix back from the ashes. So thank you to Jim for laying the groundwork there at Ohio State for us. So it's one of those things that, Mark had highlighted on what we've been doing in the Midwest, that it's no coincidence that you can draw a 3-hour radius from Columbus and you have more people playing handball in that radius than anywhere else in the country. Just between myself and Joey, who's going to speak a little bit later about what's going on here in Detroit, we really put a lot of emphasis on getting handball as in people's faces as much as possible, creating as many opportunities for people to get involved with the game. We had a beach tournament today. We did not have the turnout that we had hoped for, but we were able to get people off the beach that they were sitting there asking themselves, what are you guys playing? And we said, hey, come check out beach handball. They jumped in, they played with us for 5 hours. Those guys had full intention of just sitting on the beach, drinking a few beers, and instead they spent the afternoon playing beach handball with us, and they were pumped. They were sitting there checking their stats after the game and whatnot. So it's one of those things that we just really try to get as many opportunities to grow the game as possible. So some of the stuff that we've done in recent times, obviously the Columbus Challenge Cup, we're trying to get every kind of team in the Midwest to get together, to come together and have a game, and get people aware that these teams exist. One thing that we did this past summer was our county fair tour. So we went to various counties throughout the state of Ohio that have kind of a hot spot of where we're trying to grow the club, just grow the sport in general. And we had pretty decent turnout at all of those events. Had a booth, had stickers, coloring pages, fun facts about handball, getting kids involved with the game. And there's many different aspects, whether it's summer gym or kids summer camps, that Joey and Dale will talk about a little bit later. But there's a lot going on that we try to put a little bit more effort in, that I think that a lot of the other communities throughout the country are not doing, and that's something that we in the Midwest take a lot of pride in, being kind of this focal point of where handball can be grown. And it's something that we are really happy to see. And there's a lot of good things. For instance, you look at the Ohio State program. We finished second this past year, just behind West Point, a close 1-point loss in the championship game. But one of our players got signed to the FCH program, which is the Forum Club Handball. For those of you unaware, it's basically an agreement that the U.S. and China have with a lot of premier clubs to bring their players into elite programs in Europe to help them grow that talent and bring it back to their respective countries. And so one of our players from Ohio State, he's in Portugal right now training at FC Porto, a Champions League club. And that's something that we're really excited about, and it's really paving the way for future talented players. And Joey's been very involved with spending a lot of time in Europe and making a lot of relationships with different general managers and clubs over there to help create this kind of pipeline that we can send players from the Midwest to these European clubs. And one thing that I'm very focused on is that every year, every kid has a spring break. And so one thing that we talk about at Ohio State is, you could go spend $1,000 at Miami or somewhere in Florida and go on spring break, or you could go spend the same amount of money and have a trip to Europe and play handball with some premier level talent and introduce yourselves to these different clubs and create that relationship. And so we've done 3 trips in the last 5 years to Denmark, Norway, and the Netherlands, and I think all of our guys have loved that opportunity. And so we've extended that to different clubs, and obviously not everyone's up for that opportunity, but it's something that we offer that's not normally accepted. So you look at how fast clubs have been growing. We've had an opportunity a couple years ago during COVID where Melissa Zhang, former U.S. Team handball member, was hosting these kind of Zoom calls with people that you could come talk to Olympians and get to know a little bit more about handball. We had some individuals that jumped on the call. They said, "Hey, I'm from Kentucky," and I said, "Hey, why don't you talk to me a little bit more about what you want to do?" And right after that call, we started the Kentucky Stags program, and they've been around now for 2 years and pretty strong, and they've competed in various tournaments, and we're really excited about what they can do, and that kind of helps continue to grow our network. Each year that I graduate kids from Iowa State, they stick around Columbus, which grows our club. Joey's continuing to grow the program in the Detroit area. We have a program up in Flint. They have a lot of good media attention. They won an award for a Flint Community Award. They got a grant basically to help grow their club, and so they're expanding to kind of be a multi-sport institution, so we're really excited about that. But you look at Pittsburgh, Flint, Cincinnati, Lexington, Columbus, Ohio State. We're growing several college teams right now. Miami University in Ohio, they had died away. They're coming back right now. We have some guys from the Beach youth team that'll be going to school there, so they're going to help resurrect the program there. University of Dayton, I coach high school lacrosse. A lot of my kids from the lacrosse team go to UD, and I try to force handball upon them. That's part of my system with coaching lacrosse, is I infiltrate the high school program. But they're trying to get his team started at Dayton. We have kind of some guys from the Cal Heat program. Their kind of feeder system, they go to Case Western up in Cleveland, so they're going to be starting a team up there this fall. So we're really excited about that. So we got 3 new college teams that are just coming out of basically nowhere, and it's one of those things that you look throughout the country, you don't see that kind of growth, and it's just an odd coincidence that we have that just here in the Midwest that we're really excited about. And to me, the biggest piece is just having games, so that the proximity of teams is the biggest aspect that I see we struggle with handball, is that if I want to go play Mike in Colorado Springs, I got to tell guys like, hey, we're going to have to spend $400, $500 to get a flight. You're going to have another couple $100 on your hotel, and college kids can't afford that. So having teams that are within a 2 or 3 hour drive, or even less in that matter, it's really exciting. And so this past year, Joey helped coordinate U.S. Nationals up in Adrian, Michigan. It was, in my opinion, one of the best events that we've had from a USA Team handball stance. Everyone had a blast. It was a great time. And so we're looking to, I'll let Joey probably talk about that a little bit later here, about some things to come up in the southern Michigan realm. But as far as Ohio and the Midwest goes, we got a Great Lakes Challenge Cup where various teams are going to play against each other, and we're going to try to work with US Team Handball to see if the winner of the Great Lakes Challenge Cup can get in a bid for the elite qualification within the US Team Handball National Championships event. We will also be having our Midwest League and the Trailblazer Conference. The Trailblazers are a college conference that we have 2 teams from Iowa State, Cincinnati, and Pittsburgh in our Western Division, and then North Carolina, James Madison, and Johns Hopkins. I'm missing one from the East. But it's good to see a college conference finally taking off, and that's something that we're really excited about. But the Midwest is really kind of the hub of handball, and so I'm sorry you guys might not have been able to see some of the action from today, but hopefully for the future you guys can take recognition that there's a lot going on here, and we're really excited about it. And even most recently, we've had a lot of people that have a lot of handball knowledge move back into the area. Mark Ortega, he was unfortunately not able to be here tonight because he's coaching West Point for the next few weeks. He spent the last 2 years in the Netherlands coaching professionally with a club. He took that team from last place to losing in the championship in a 2-year period, so it's pretty exciting stuff. So he'll be helping out with West Point, helping out with Ohio State. We have several national team players that have somehow just ended up in Columbus, so I'm very fortunate both on the beach and indoor side with Katie Ann Scherer, Mike King, and Alex Recker. So we're really excited about what's going on in the Columbus neck of the woods. So there's a lot of good things to come in the Midwest, and I just hope you guys can take note of that. We'll try to put as much on social media and keep you guys aware of what's going on. But we try to have games at least once a month, whether that's hosting or competing, and it makes everyone stay engaged and trying to grow the sport of handball, because just like I mentioned today, every new person that starts playing the game, that's a win for us, and I just want as many people to play the sport as possible. And I look at where your guys' generation, when we started this game, and how many people were playing then and where we are now, I feel like we have not had the amount of rise that we should have, and so that's one of those things that I feel personally responsible to try to improve that number, and just telling everybody every day, you know, have you heard about handball? So that's something that I try to bring up all the time. So I'm happy to talk with you guys more after the banquet here about what's going on in the Midwest in further detail, but that's a little synopsis of what we got going on. So it's really exciting stuff. So thank you to Mark for helping facilitate this, and all of you guys for coming out for a fantastic evening. So.
Thanks, JD. Great work, and a lot of energy goes into it, as Jim Thome knows, and some of Mike Cavanaugh, what it takes to organize and run tournaments and clubs and stuff. Our next guest speaker is Joey Williams from the Detroit Handball Club to give us a little update on what they're doing. Joey?
So JD's a tough act to follow, so we're going to play a trailer from a documentary that we're producing first, and then I'll do my piece. So enjoy.
Let's go, boys. Better than them, guys. We're better than them. Let's go to work. Let's go to work. Let's go to work. Let's go to work. Let's go. Gotta be movement without the ball. DNC, 1, 2, 3.
Detroit is a city that, despite its hardship, despite its uncertainty, you know what Detroit is and what it's all about. It's gritty, it's a community, hard-hitting, no BS, but it's also beautiful. And in a lot of ways, it's a match made in heaven for the sport of handball.
Handball, pretty simple. You guys have all seen videos on YouTube of handball. Pretty much the same principle, except a smaller court. Besides that, you can't go into your opponent's goal area. You can't go into your own. Most goals wins. It's pretty cut and dry. You guys have any questions? All right, let's play some handball.
I think handball has to sort of form its own identity here in the United States. American handball players tend to bring their own style, and that's usually from the previous sport they played, whether it's hockey, lacrosse, basketball, football, soccer. The guys who come and play handball bring different elements of that game to the handball court.
It was a good learning experience. We had a lot of guys out there fresh to the team, fresh to the sport. It was tough.
Just learning the game a lot, like the movement, how we should move off each other, getting to the ball.
Yeah, it's weird. You want to like dribble like it's basketball, but there's no pivot foot. You can just pick it up and then start dribbling again.
Also, make sure the camera has a clear angle. You got to have the camera.
It's all about the highlight on your site, you know.
If you catch the ball, you can start by taking 3 steps. Then you can choose to pass or start dribbling, bouncing the balls. If you start bouncing the ball, you're allowed to pick it up and take 3 more steps. Then you have to pass or shoot. Then you can start dribbling again. Pass, catch the ball. And your feet should still be going forward.
When we decided to really go all in, I wanted to make sure that we had proper coaching right out of the gate. So I brought in a friend from Sweden named Frederick. He helped lead our very first, we called it a tryout, but I guess it turned into our very first practice. So many of the guys from that original practice are still playing on the team today. It's really shocking in a cool way.
1, 2, 3, Detroit!
Every year, USA Team Handball has its national championship. It's like probably the biggest event for the sport in the U.S. And in the past, it's been in places like Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, York, Pennsylvania. I think it was in Las Vegas one year. But overall, it's been in pretty like small cities with, and this has been in my experience, with no like established club. So the circus will kind of roll into town for one weekend in May and then pick up stakes and leave. To have the event, at least in a city with like a a club and like kind of a vision for how the sport can grow. I thought that was very important, and I decided, well, let's try to give this thing a shot and see if we can have it hosted in Detroit. So managed to lock down the bid. So that's both exciting and nerve-wracking.
When I first thought about nationals and considered hosting it, I didn't want to. I've been going to nationals for years before that, and it was always one of the most underwhelming events in my athletic career. What it lacked was sort of a coherent vision. I thought about the opportunity to do it right, so I decided, okay, let's try to do it like nobody else has ever done it before.
We're going to do like an outdoor court right here, get food trucks going. Oh, this is going to be so cool. This is going to be awesome. You can see Canada. You can see Canada from right here. Oh, this is fantastic. And we're just going to have highlights going the whole nonstop the whole week on this giant screen. Oh.
But the world had other plans for us for that year.
I'm literally sitting here working on this, and I make this announcement that the border's closed. I was about to get on a flight to go to Budapest, Hungary, and then to Veszprém, Hungary, to sign a deal with Veszprém, Telekom Veszprém, one of the best Premier League handball clubs in the world. And I'm sitting at the gate, and they announced that Trump has closed the border for the next 30 days. It would turn into the apocalypse as soon as I start getting some stuff going with handball. All right, just my luck.
Okay, stop, everybody take a look. Who's not the next one, but the second to the right. So I'm looking at Williams Jr. There's another Williams, and it's Jay, and then all the way around. So when I say go, we're just going to pass the ball really lightly to the right-hand side, the second man up. Everybody knows where the ball goes? Yeah. And go!
I think it started as a little bit of a wild dream of like saying, hey, we're going to do this, and suddenly this thing took off.
So everybody knows everybody, the names and all that? So Chris, Jordan, Brandon.
He's all the lefty on the team. That's
right.
Fun part.
The backcourt, mid-backcourt, will go over here, and this guy will basically take this guy, and this guy will basically take this guy. Ball's right.
We can practice till we're blue in the face, but ultimately there's nothing better than playing in a game. So that was what the Detroit Handball League really gave us. It was an opportunity to just play games, which is what we all, we play handball to play. And that's where the club really, truly formed. A club is a group of people that come together over a common passion and just celebrate the thing that they all love. And for us, the thing we love is the sport of handball. When you pursue something that I think is a worthwhile goal, it's inevitable that there are going to be challenges. The fact that we love to do what we do, we love the work, we love the city, we love the sport. The work is the reward. The Detroit Handball Club is only getting started. We want to make people's lives better through handball in our own way. That's what we're all about. And we also like to whoop some other cities' asses every once in a while.
DHC on 3. 1, 2, 3. DHC!
Okay, and that trailer was produced by the very talented Andrew Acioli. He's sitting over there. That was actually my first time seeing it, so I'm still processing that right now. But Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe. I'm not a very eloquent speaker, if you haven't picked up already, so I've always been told to start with a joke. First thing I'd like to say is it's great to see so many Olympians here because I've always wondered what the first Olympics was like, and so I see that there's plenty of people. I've also been told the older you are, the better you were, so we have some of the greatest handball talents on earth here. All right. But in all seriousness, it's really a privilege to be able to play this sport and frankly to live in this country, if I'm being completely honest. I have this quote that's the screensaver for my phone, and it's, "Handball is a gift from those who came before us. It is our responsibility to shape and preserve the game for generations that follow. Consider deeply and seriously your responsibility to the game of handball. Do not betray the trust put in your hands to preserve for your successors the beauty and skill of the game. To play it for the aesthetic pleasure and satisfaction of yourselves and for spectators. I feel the responsibility of the game lies in the hands of the generation in the driving seat. In short, it is your game." Being in this room with people who truly laid that foundation for the sport gives me goosebumps, and it's really hitting me at this very moment. People like Mike Cavanaugh dedicated your life to the sport, and it's I've been admiring you for my playing career and now for my I guess my water boy career now, but it's genuinely a pleasure and a privilege, and to meet so many great Olympians from the Munich Games and from various other Olympics. It's incredible. So, in short, the Detroit Handball Club, I see it as my way of giving back to the sport, my way of thanking you for your contribution to this game, for giving me such a blessing in my life, which is this sport. And I hope to do the same for future generations. So, few unique things that JD sort of touched on about the club is the beautiful thing about handball is it's a very diverse sport, especially in the U.S. A lot of expats and immigrants, spread their knowledge of the game. But I think it's special when it's a couple of American-born and raised guys who really have a passion for the sport, who pick up the torch from your generations and bring it forward. So that's one unique thing about the Detroit Handball Club. And on top of that, we're also attempting to be somewhat strategic in how we grow the sport. We want to do it in a way that's sustainable economically and practical logistically. Mainly, we have obviously our adult team. We call it the semi-professional team, and that serves as sort of a marketing tool that we can use both for adult athletes who may be transitioning out of baseball, football, whatnot, but also for kids, because kids don't really care if it's LeBron James or just the guy in the Detroit jersey. They just see a cool athlete who's throwing a ball really fast and hitting people. So that's sort of the approach with the adult team. With the kids, we're still finding our way. We formed a partnership with the city of Detroit where all the kids, all 50,000 kids in the school district are going to have handball as part of their curriculum, which we're hoping is sort of a first step to introducing the game beyond just school. So that's one youth initiative. We also partnered with the Detroit Pistons and their philanthropic arm to do programs for kids in underprivileged areas. And of course, we're now trying to sort of grow the competitive youth side of things. So a lot of exciting things in the city of Detroit. So thank you for coming to this event here in our home. It's genuinely an honor, and feel great appreciation for it. And thank you, Mark Wright, for all the work that you do. I know it's thankless at times, and every one of you is, I'm sure, aware of that.
So I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you very much. So that is all I have to say. Andrew, would you like to talk about the documentary? All right, sounds good. Well, hey, thank you all.
Thanks, Joey. If you want to talk about goosebumps and chills, August 26, 1972, there's some people here that walked out in Olympic Stadium in Munich to represent their country. And I think that's one of the goals what we want to have in all our programs is to give men and women, American men and women, that opportunity to represent their country at the Olympics in team handball. I'd like to go right into the Army Champs program and a video on what we're celebrating today, 50 years, 1972, Army Champs, Munich, Germany.
For the past 6 years, I've been trying to make a film about America's first Olympic handball team in 1972, the so-called Army Champs, guys I've gotten to know a little bit. This became especially true in 2019, right before the pandemic hit, when, in order to get production of the film going, I took off in my Chevy Equinox and drove around the country to each one of the guys on the team that's still living and interviewed them using an iPhone 7 and some audio equipment. Out of that trip comes a look at a group of men I can now truly call my friends.
I remember the Canadians, and we played them a couple of times, but there's nothing like playing a bunch of hockey players in team handball. They were the meanest snakes that ever were. I mean, they were dirty and physical, and they just tried to beat the heck out of us. They really did. And but at least we could compete with them, and we thought we were better athletically than they were. We were bigger, but they were meaner, and we learned a lot about ourselves in that game especially. But that's where, you know, Terry Tinkle came in, and Rico was our big shooter. He was our star for sure. But Terry Tinkle came in, and he was a big horse, and we knew from practicing against Terry Tinkle that he was tough, and nothing slowed him down. You had to really hit him hard, and even then, you know, he'd shove you back. And he had a great arm, and he really pretty much won that game, I think.
So we came down, and Eddie Spann, who was my roommate, a guy from Mississippi State, and eventually became a best man in my first marriage, was on the floor with me. And I said, Eddie, give me the ball. Eddie, give me the ball. And Eddie was really smooth. He was a point guard. He's about a 6'2" point guard, I think, in college. And so he comes down and he draws all the attention. And all of a sudden, at the last second, I got the ball. And before the defense could adjust, I take one dribble and I'm up in the air. Bam, I get another goal. And then there's a loose ball, and we go on, and somebody gives me the ball, and I'm out in front. Boom, another goal. So now we're up by 2. We got the momentum, and a couple of minutes later, I got a third goal. So I had scored 5 goals. We're up by 3, or I think 3. And they just, I wouldn't say they gave up, but they deflated. One of the pictures shows us right after the game, and the smiles on right in the center in the back. And I kept that. I don't keep a lot of my athletic artifacts, but I kept that picture because I'm right in the middle of it with a big smile and a peace sign on my chest. And that's what I felt about our team and the Olympics and winning that day. And I was so excited.
When we made the Olympic team, life changed. I mean, and that was after Elkhart. Our meal program was much better. We were treated differently by the military. We were Olympians. And so there were things, especially for me in the military, not everybody was in it, but there were things that they did that made it so much easier. You don't have to be here at 9 a.m. anymore. You know, we expect you to be training.
I wasn't in the Army, so I didn't have an income or anything while handball was going on. So it was, scuffling days. And, luckily I had some guys that I went to high school with who had graduated from college, and were involved in some businesses on Long Island. They'd call me up, hey, we need somebody to do this. I'd go pick up, a couple of days worth of work. I had a friend who ran a wine wholesaling place, and he goes, hey, we need somebody to run the, lower upstate New York route. And, we need a driver, get in here. And you just really couldn't have a job, because with handball, you're going to Jersey to practice. You're going to Virginia for, practice down at Fort Belvoir. You're going, not that this was a bad thing, but you're going to Europe to play teams. So a lot of times you're home for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks, and then you're off again.
We had a hard time as American athletes kind of judging and understanding or evaluating the physicality of the game, because it would vary from one country to another. It would vary by who the umpire was or who the refs were that were running the game. Some would allow a very physical game, grabbing, hitting, punching, and knocking down, and others, you grab somebody and automatically they blow a whistle and they call a foul. So we had a little difficulty at first trying to know what is acceptable, what is legal, what's not legal. And we realized later on, it depends on where you played.
When I really felt that we were a team, it was the winter. I think it was maybe February or March on a winter trip. And we were playing the Netherlands national team. I think we lost to them by 1 goal. And they were top 5, top 6 team out of the World Championships. And I vividly remember playing defense where they had no shot. We were a unit. The team moved. We just went back and forth. If you see on a soccer field, players moving, backing up. We had 1.5 guys on every single guy every time. We were blocking shots. We were stealing balls. We were quick. We were getting fast breaks. And right after that game, I think I knew we could compete.
The Olympic Village had been pretty open. I mean, almost anybody could get in there, and did. And I remember when it happened, and I think it was JR and Rico and I walked over, and there was a knoll that looked down on, there was a picture that I still have, I think it was on Life magazine, of the guy with the machine gun on the second story guarding the door where the captives were being held. And I can't believe they let us get this close. We were on a knoll, and I mean, you could see the guy's face. We couldn't have been 60, 70 yards away, and a group of people were just standing there, and I can't imagine them letting get that close. And then the ceremony, when they stopped the games for 10 days, I remember. But going back into it, I think, once you got on the floor, I think as happens to most athletes in most games, once you get on the floor, then you kick into another mode, and that was all forgotten.
When the game was over, the goalie of the Spanish team came walking up to me, and he took his jersey off and he handed it to me because I'd scored 5 goals from the 7-meter shot, and I gave it back to him in his locker room, because the jersey of an athlete in those days was everything. But it was a thoughtful thing. We really felt that we had the physical and mental skill to now play a great team, because we had played against the Yugoslavs, and I think they taught us a lot. And we showed the Spaniards that we had arrived.
My dad was very intelligent, and he was a stickler about school and education. So what I do remember, and this is, childhood memories, I remember a lot of pressure for excellence, but he also spent a lot of time with me. I was practically reading before I went to first grade. We had a bookcase, and so there were dictionaries, there were books for me to read because I read a lot, and his 72 Olympic book was in there. So I think I took it down one day and started flipping through it. It's a pretty thick book. And I started asking questions, why do we have this one as opposed to maybe any other years? What's significant about 72? And that's when he told me to play in the Olympics.
But we were good because we all understood our mission. And our mission was to get better and play in Munich, play in the Olympics. I don't even know if that said goal, be an Olympian, was way up here on everybody's list. What was up on everybody's list was to get better and eventually win.
We had
good athletes. We had great personalities. I mean, we had a little bit of everything on that team from a personality standpoint, and for some reason it just kind of focused. As a matter of fact, some of the guys that didn't get to go to Munich, we still consider them part of the team, and we still include them in the reunions because we felt we were living together and working together for all those months, and as far as we were concerned, they were as much part of the team as we were the ones that played. And I don't know, we just kind of came together, and we try to see each other every 5 years at least. And of course now it's getting to the point where we better start seeing ourselves, more often because we're losing a few of them. But it's just one of those things where everybody just kind of gelled.
I'd like to now introduce two players from that team, Rick Abrahamson and Bob Sparks, to tell us a little bit about their experience with the Army Champs program and the '72 Olympics. Gentlemen.
Well, good evening, everyone. I was one of those old guys when they said in the '72 team, stand up. That was me, and I got to make this quick tonight because Dennis Burkle said he needs to be in bed at 9:30, and we're running tight now. So we're the old group. When Mark asked me to just make a few comments about the Olympic experience, it's kind of a broad topic. I mean, I said, well, you can cover a hell of a lot about Olympic experience, but when I sat and thought about it, what really came to mind really quickly was the guys, and you just saw them on the screen a few minutes ago. They were a special group of guys, really unique in every way, and they made the whole experience, the whole journey along the way, something so special. That's the best memory I have. We had our 50-year reunion, 50 years, geez, just a couple months ago down in Tampa. And we had the core group there, about 7 of us that have really stayed pretty close. And we invited everyone that had anything to do with the program. It was such a great meeting to sit and talk and drink, and all the old stories come out as they always do. I think we've all heard them maybe 200-300 times. We still laugh and like them. Our wives hate them, but we go through them anyway. In fact, speaking of wives, actually our wives and our siblings, for at least this core 7 players on the team, have become friends in their own right. They get together, we meet once or twice, sometimes a year. So that friendship has really endured and become something even more than just handball. Each one of the guys has their own unique story of how they got there. And that's what kind of made it special. I mean, if you asked everyone to say, well, how'd you get involved with that handball program to begin with? Well, I'll just briefly say in my case, I was sent to Fort Sam Houston in Texas to be an Army medic. And so was a very good friend of mine, Roger Baker, who also you saw up on the screen as one of the players. He had gotten there maybe a month before me. And we were there to be medics. And when you're trained as a medic, you're going to Nam. And what they told us was the life expectancy of a medic is about 12 minutes. You go there, you got that helmet on with that red cross on, and you are a target. So it wasn't high on my list, but that's where we were. But anyway, Roger Baker goes into the gym one night, plays basketball. He was a heck of a good basketball player. And a major who was working there, head of special services, said, Roger, would you like to stay here and play basketball for the 4th Army? We are trying to develop a team to compete with all the other posts. And he said, sure, absolutely. So his orders got cut, and he's now at Fort Sam Houston. About a month later, I go to the gym, just happenstance, shoot some baskets, play some games, and I get into a match with him, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 1-on-1. And he says, Bob, would you like to see if I can get the coach to change your orders? I'm sitting there going, wow, is this a gift from heaven or what? So I said, absolutely. So long story short, both of us became part of the 4th Army basketball team. From there, that kind of opened the door to handball for us. They started looking for players in the Army that could adapt to this new sport, and they had camps, tryout camps. And Roger and I both made it, originally one of the camps. It was really very tough, almost vicious training, because they were bringing in players probably every few weeks from the armies to see who's going to make the team, who's not going to make the team. And you knew if you got cut where you were headed, back to maybe your original post and back to your original job. So they were vicious. And when we finally took a trip to Europe to go play some teams, it was like a reprieve. Okay, the pressure's off. Let's just go play hard and have some fun. Probably the real learning curve came when we played some of the elite teams in Europe. I think Rico's going to touch on this a little later. We spent a week in Romania, and they just came off of being the world champs, and it kind of gave us an insight as to where we had to be to compete in the world, and we were far from that yet. But we learned so much on how the plays, the strategy, how they formulated the way they approached the game. So we learned a lot of it, and it gave us a barometer of where we were. I'm going to jump right to the Olympics because I do want to try to keep this short. When we ask, well, what was your Olympic experience or memory? I think everyone who's ever been there would say opening ceremonies. When you dress and you're now marching with all the Olympic athletes, and we were walking through part of Munich before we entered the stadium, and they opened the doors, and there you see the throngs of people cheering, and the music and the flags and all of it. You get kind of choked up. You walk in there and you hear and you see you're representing the United States in a sport that now has some of the best, not all, many of the best athletes in the world are here representing their countries, doing likewise. And it's very humbling. It really is. And I remember myself walking through going, God, 2 short years ago, if I didn't go to that gym one night and play basketball with Roger Baker, I probably would have been in Vietnam, and who knows what would have happened. So that's the unique stories. I think each one of these guys could kind of tell you how they came together and why it was so special for us. Somebody mentioned we played Yugoslavia in the Olympics, one of the games. We lost, but we played very competitively against the team that won the gold medal that year. So we were pretty proud after the fact that, well, hey, we did accomplish something about being competitive. And then when we beat Spain, that was really the topper. I mean, the feeling of accomplishment and gratification for all of us was that all this now kind of came to the top or to the head where we validated the effort, we validated the team. We could now play with some of the better teams in Europe and be competitive. So I'll come back full circle and end this. It's back to the guys. That was the experience, the special group that we had pulled together and played with. It was an amazing trip, amazing journey, and they've become lifelong friends. And all I'll say is it was a one-in-a-lifetime experience with some of the best guys I've ever met, and I love all of them. So anyway, that's all I got, guys.
Well, I really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Dennis, my teammate, coach, and very good friend. I wanted to be here to help support you with your celebration of the Foundation Award. Jim Thome, congratulations. We've known each other for 49 years, and I gotta say, I don't know very many people anywhere that have done more than what you've done for team handball from an organization standpoint, other than Mike Cavanaugh, of course, who gave you the award. But you're a tremendous person, you really are. Sparky mentioned something that really hits home, and that is the guys. And we are a close-knit group where we get together often. There's a core of us that go to Las Vegas every spring and during March Madness, and we take our kids. And the wives stay home. We take our kids. It's Dad's vacation. And it's just amazing how the kids have bonded with each other. And it's something that they look forward to and talk about all year. And we'll be going back. COVID's over, hopefully, and we'll be going back this coming year. So the relationship with the guys, tremendous. The thing I wanted to mention is Army Champs was really a two-level program. It was a program to expand the sport, at the major installation sports all over the country, which we did. And it was very successful until General Westmoreland retired in 1972, later in 1972. But the other part of it was the Olympic movement and the Olympic team. And that wasn't General Westmoreland's, that wasn't his program. That was Dr. Peter Buning's program. And I don't think he always gets the attention or the credit that he should have received. It was he that talked Westmoreland into, I think, General, we can get to the Olympics with an all-Army team. Just give me carte blanche, and I'll go out and hit the various installations. I'll find the athletes, and I'll take them to Munich, and we'll make it an all-Army team. It turned out of the 16 players, 12 were from the military Army. So we had 80% representation. It was never a sure thing that we were going to go to the Olympics, of course. We had to qualify and beat Canada, Argentina, Mexico. Argentina was a tough game. Mexico, we won handily. But Canada was a battle. It was really a very big battle, in the sense that they had been playing handball a lot longer than we had. We'd only been playing 16 months. Canada, you grew up playing handball. So it was a close game, and as was pointed out, Terry Tinkle came in and smoked them. 5 goals in about 10 minutes. It was phenomenal, really was. So we thank him many times. He didn't go on and stay with us. He decided to retire. But for those of us that stayed on, I would have to say it's the most consequential decision we've made in our lifetime. Certainly for me it is, with the exception of getting married, of course, and kids. But it just changed our life in such a major way. And we're still living that today with our relationships with our teammates. So I wanted to touch on the Olympics. As Sparky mentioned a couple of teams. The team that really surprised us was the Yugoslavia team. We knew they were really good, and we knew that we probably didn't have much of a chance. But somehow we're down 1 point at halftime, and nobody in the Olympics had played them that tough, that well for a half. Now we came out the second half, we got behind, lost the game, but it was a close game, and that was our third game. We'd lost the first 2, very competitive, but we lost the first 2. So then we had Yugoslavia, we're in it, and then we walked away and we said, we can win. And we faced Spain the next game. Spain is listed, they were in the top 10 in the world. And we knocked them off. It was a huge upset, 22-20. And the handball world just couldn't believe it. I mean, it was news. And I can hear them now. I know what they were saying. They're saying, how can those guys who came over here and were losing to third level club teams just a year ago, rise up and beat Spain, a number 8 team in the world? Because it's almost unbelievable. when you try to play a sport, as you know, I'm not telling you anything, but when you try to play a sport and learn a sport in 16 months, and the other teams have been playing all their life, it's very difficult. So that was a tremendous win. And then we went on our next game, Denmark, and we're down by 1 point with 20 seconds to go. And we put the full court press on, and if we intercept, we could tie and go into overtime. We overextended. They scored a goal with about 10 seconds to go, so we lose by 2. But it was a very good and hard-fought game. So at the end of the Olympics, we really felt like we had accomplished something. Of course, everybody asks you when you get home, did you win a gold medal? But you go to the Olympics and you go through the experience, opening ceremonies, unbelievable. It just is something I still think about, often. You focus back on all the practices, your parents supporting you in sports all those years, and they're watching, and it's just a very unique and special situation to be in that at that point in your life, to go through opening ceremonies. I know we have time issues, so I'll get off here, but I just want to say I'm really happy to be here, honored to be here, and I appreciate everything that Team Handball has given to us, and I speak for all of my teammates. They're so thankful for Team Handball. Thanks.
Thanks, Rick and Bob. That was fantastic. Appreciate those stories and the insights of Munich. Next is the Founders Award. The Founders Award is for the originators of the sport of team handball. Past winners are Peter and Renata Buning and Laszlo Jurek. We have a short video right now to show on the Founders Award.
Dennis Burkholz was born January 19, 1945, in Brillion, Wisconsin, near Green Bay, the next in line behind twin boys of a family that would eventually include 2 more boys and a girl. Realizing the athletic potential of Dennis and his brothers, Lester Burkholz, a salesman who knew he could work anywhere, made a decision to move the family to a more metropolitan area where the athletic opportunities would be better. He and his wife, Marie, chose Whitefish Bay, just north of Milwaukee, the kind of community that was a perfect place to raise a family as well as future All-Stars. Indeed, the Burkholz boys became local heroes along that stretch of Lake Michigan and all of Wisconsin in Dennis's case. He was all-state basketball and excelled at virtually any sport he played. When he graduated in 1963, he was headed to Kansas State, a star recruit of the legendary coach Tex Winter.
My dad tells the story of him understanding that his sons had a lot of athletic ability and he didn't really want them stuck in a small town. So he moved us to Milwaukee, or moved the family to Milwaukee, and sought out the best school system with the best athletic possible in the city. We ended up in Whitefish Bay, and in fact, it was probably, still is, it's the #1 school in the state of Wisconsin. And our basketball program there was run by a guy, or coached by a guy named Jack Nagel, who was a coach at Marquette at the time, and ended up coming to the Bay. So we had great coaching, great schooling. I ended up getting a scholarship to Kansas State, where I played 3 years of good basketball.
I remember the Burkholzes. I remember going to basketball games to watch my brother play, and the Burkholzes being there for their son, Butch, or Ron, is to do. And that was the connection with the family. We had always respected their basketball. And Dennis went off and played at Kansas State for Tex Winter. Then I played for Randy. Randy and I both played for Tex Winter at Northwestern. So there was kind of that connection.
Even though Dennis has got friends everywhere and has got close friends and has always been loyal to his family, but he has always made me feel like our friendship mattered to him.
You had to be absolutely on your game to be one of those 8 to actually get selected to qualify for the senior tour. So I think what always impressed me about him is that he always maintained his composure through everything, which is obviously as an athlete, that's a huge priority. Excuse me, to be able to maintain composure and calmness and know that things aren't going right at this moment, but stick with it, fight through it. Let's focus on the next hole, focus on the next shot. He always kind of maintained that philosophy.
I know when he was still in the Army with us, he traveled, bringing that sport as a representative of the sports office in Washington, bringing that sport to the U.S. Army. So he traveled, and he was a real pioneer, and Dennis has stuck with it over the years.
So he took advantage of our particular strengths, if you will, our conditioning, to be maybe a greater presence on defense and be more effective on the defense. Like out front, one of us out front and trying to partition the floor, things like that. So I think he adapted his coaching from a tactical standpoint to say, what resources do I have? And what can I do with that? And then I think that he had already developed a pretty good, obviously, feel for, I think, like Roger Baker on the circle and JR on the other wing and things like that, for what their skills were and maybe to isolate them sometimes.
He's a great salesman, so because he has a great personality. He's very open. He gets along with everybody very well. He's very comfortable to be around. That's how I like to look at it. Is that people like him because he's so comfortable to be around. He's nice to everybody. He sells in a way that people respect.
And when Dennis talked about bringing the beach handball tournament to Oceanside, which is right 15 minutes north of where I live, I was impressed, because here was a sport that nobody knew much about. Few people knew anything at all about it in the Carlsbad or North San Diego area. But Dennis was not, he's never one to be slowed down by the challenges which lie ahead.
He's a open, caring person who will look out for the best intentions of anybody. And I truly don't think he has a mean bone in his body.
To present the Founders Award, Mr. Mike Cavanaugh.
I want to circle back to Rick and put a little spotlight on him. He was the number 3 overall scorer at the Munich Games. Incredible achievement.
Thank you. Let me just say it's team handball, so somebody threw me the ball, and that's usually Dennis.
Okay. It's an honor for me to introduce Dennis. Unlike Jim Thome, I've known Dennis for 51 years. We've heard that number before. The Founders Award, it's something that's earned. He's been in it from the start. His contributions endure, they continue, and he's left his footprint for over decades. Again, I can't emphasize enough, he was captain of the 72 Olympic team, head coach of the 76 Olympic team. He became president of the organization. Was named the director of beach handball. And I'll talk about some successful sponsorship and program developments that he highlighted. As a player, he was just such a natural athlete. You saw basketball and golf, all-Army basketball. Golf, 2 strokes off the PGA Senior Tour. Tennis, I want to pick up a match in tennis, and he was just a natural. I'm breaking sweat, and he's just swatting the ball around. His vision in the sport of handball was ahead of its time. His passes were brilliant and blind. I'm reminded of the fact that I got a severe bloody nose, and from a pass that he'd thrown, and all he said was, "Be ready next time." So there's that mean bone in your body gone. And then we've talked about the victory over Spain. It's incredible. In '74, we talk a little bit because it was actually 2 of his shots that you saw tonight. '74 World Championships in Berlin. We were getting killed by a monster Russian team. And Dennis was trying to carry the load offensively. And I distinctly remember a behind-the-back twist shot, which went over the goal, over the restraining net, and into the second deck in the stadium. And you could see the frustration on his face, but I thought it was brilliant because he bought 10 seconds extra time from the Russians couldn't have the ball, you know? My experience with him as a coach had high expectations, and he was a taskmaster. And I recall some very colorful speeches, the kind with your veins popped out here and here. And the language was colorful. Actually, Dennis, you gave me my first chance at coaching when we were at a tryout camp in Oregon with a guy that went on to play professional football. But anyway, you had to take a phone call and you said, "Kavanaugh, take over." And it was a fast break drill. It was the longest 10 minutes of my life. Thank you for that shot. After this is over a beverage, I'll tell you about my first international loss as a coach. I was coaching Saudi Arabia. Dennis and a few people here representing the USA, an official international match, and we got killed. That's a long story, but it's worth hearing. Okay, as president of USA Team Handball, it's a thankless job. People are nipping at your heels all the time. I've seen that for 40 years. You have to juggle and please International Handball Federation, the Olympic Committee, membership, Pan Am nations. There's always a lack of funding, lack of exposure. So you come in, and need I mention a board of directors. Those are tough things. What prepared him for that is his impact has been huge. I've got 3 things listed here. We needed a full-time training center, 94, 95, 96. And Dennis was going to take one gender. Said, "Yeah, come down here. We'll make it." And then finally, probably Peter talked to him and said, "We need both genders." "Okay, send them both." So he took on the task of developing a training site in Atlanta, conditioning site, getting apartment, coaches and staff, getting jobs, and then exhibitions. We did an exhibition at the Georgia Dome International. I'm not sure what team that was. It was Romania, let's say Romania. We played in the Georgia Dome, for God's sakes. He also was instrumental in landing sponsorship with the Weather Channel. The Weather Channel, my God, what's the connection there? Golf. Okay, but it was $900,000 over 3 years. And what did that equate to? A robust experience for men and women getting competition leading up to the Olympic Games, both abroad and domestically. Tremendous impact. Don't forget that Atlanta was the Olympic city, so we were the only show in town, and Dennis helped take full advantage of that. There was an Adopt an Athlete program, well thought out, well funded, or well supported by a shopping mall in Atlanta. That was their association with the Olympic Committee. And they had a wonderful black tie dinner. They closed the place down, and big wigs and big spenders came and donated to the program. Other NGBs, when they heard about it, came back and said, "What did you guys do there? How'd you get that?" How was that Adopt an Athlete program? Which is great because handball doesn't experience that. Now, selection procedures when you get to an Olympic Games it's a very legal process. And you got to be very careful how you do it and in the manner that you do it and who does it. But in Atlanta, it was kind of special because we went down to a hotel and we sat down. There were 3 of us that dealt with the men that were there. There were 5 of us on the selection committee, but we came in and we had the tradition of looking a guy face to face. And we said, look him in the eye, said, you made the Olympic team. You made the Olympic team. Sorry you didn't make it. It's tough. But as a result of that, we had a sponsorship with UPS. They had a brown UPS truck waiting outside the hotel. It went down to Planet Hollywood, which had a lot of TV coverage, and then a lot of parents and a lot of family and girlfriends and wives, and then they were announced as an Olympian. It was sweet to watch, really sweet. Okay, next, a lot of you don't know, and I think we have a beach handball rep here. 1996 was this 2022. Dennis organized a active rest vacation for the women's team, and we went to West Palm Beach, Florida, and played beach handball for 5 days. You know, because he saw at the time what the potential of the sport. What that led to, when you heard you had your friend speaking about, we hosted the first Pan Am Championships in beach handball at Carlsbad, and Dennis immersed himself in it. He got an apartment in Carlsbad, went out there 6 months early, took all the organizing load, set up the hotels, the food, everything, and it was a great event. And that kind of set the tone. And those are just 3 examples of Dennis's abilities. He's also one of the first guys, we thought it was just crazy at the time, to talk about a pro league and a pro tour. And it's still being talked about. And getting Europeans coming over, seeding certain cities and playing the exhibition. So what I'm leading to is in truth, Dennis is an idea guy. He's a visionary, thinks out of the box, and willing to take risks because he sees the reward. And the rewards are always for the athletes, never for him. And it's wonderful to share my ideas and reflections, and now we get to hear from you.
You want to do the picture now? Mike, you want to present? Give him right now. We were waiting for him to talk. Make it quick. All right.
What's happened?
Thank you, Mike. I wish I had about an hour here to talk about all the things and accolades that Mike talked about. I've had a really, really great fun handball career, player, coach, board member. A lot of the good things that came to me because of the Army Champs program. And Mike covered them all. And probably my most rewarding thing was the stuff we did in Atlanta in '96. Organizing a whole program for the men's and women's teams, raising a little over $1 million. But I knew everybody in Atlanta at the time because I worked for the Georgia Dome, and I was pretty popular in the city with media, and everybody knew me, and everybody knew handball because of that. So that was really a high point. The highest point is what Rico and Rick Abrahamson and Bob Sparks talked about. It's the love for each other, the great times we had learning how to play a new sport, losing all over the world, and actually ending up being winners in the end. Winners in our own mind, not necessarily on the scorecard. It was a great experience. Fortunately for me, I've carried it for 50 years now. But I don't really want to talk to you about, I don't want to talk about myself or about handball per se. I want to tell you where I think we've gone wrong, or at least not right, over the many, many years. We watched today about 4 or 5 videos here. We never saw kids playing. We only saw teams. We saw Olympic teams, national teams, club teams. But one of the big issues that I have with handball over the years, and I've been an advocate of this, Michael and I talked about it a lot, but we never accomplished anything, and that's getting kids playing handball. Without kids, we'll never have a sport in the States that are going to accomplish winning gold medals or world championships. We'll never give our kids a chance to play the greatest team, the greatest game in the world. And I'm here to tell you tonight that we've got to start youth programs. I think there's a program, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, called for kids. What is that program that IHF has, Mike? Used to have. Yeah, Handball for Kids. We'll just call it that, but we've never had that. And where we messed up was, where we messed up or where we were wrong was in 1970 when I started, and I got a bunch of guys around the table, my teammates. I don't think Rick or Bob was with us. We got Peter Buning, who was a big mentor and to me the greatest guy in handball ever started the sport, as you've all heard, around the table, and we were talking about how are we going to make handball popular in the States. And the debate was twofold. It was one, let's get kids playing, and two, let's get in the Olympic Games, make our athletes winners, win medals, and be on television. Peter drove the conversation, and he thought that we had such good athletes at the time that we could become winners in the Olympic Games, World Championships, and get on television, and that never happened. Where we failed was we never talked about getting the kids to play. When General Westmoreland started the Army Champs program, part of that program was for the Army to also go into the communities and teach the kids how to play, at that time, to overcome the fears of being in the Army with Vietnam. But again, we didn't do that. We never got a foothold with the kids program. So I'm telling you, all of you in the program here, I heard Detroit talk here. I think it was excellent, especially at the end when you mentioned getting kids playing handball. If I were the president of handball again, or if I were higher up and still involved, I would set forth the following rule. If you're going to play for the national championships every year on an annual basis, you have to have had a junior program started in order to play in that upper level. We've got to make teams start thinking about playing kids, and it just doesn't happen. We saw all the old guys play today. I've talked around here a little bit. Everybody talks about club teams. Who's going to take care of getting players into our clubs teams that have played before and don't have to relearn the sport? I remember when I was president, Mike and I think our executive director went to see the NCAA. It was one of my most embarrassing moments as president, because we wanted the sport to become an NCAA sport. And they asked us where we were going to get our coaches from. How many coaches did we have? And I don't know what Michael said or what I said, but it was maybe we got 20 coaches. And the guys looked at us and said, well, that's not enough. The next question was, where are you going to get your referees from? Or how many referees do you have? We said, well, we have 15 here, and we get 15 out of the country to come in and take care of our games. And again, they said, that's not good enough. And then they said, where are you going to get your players? And we told them what we all felt at the time, and probably still feel, that we're going to get our players because the game is so good, everybody's going to want to play. But that doesn't work. In 1972, we had really, really good athletes. And as Rick and Bob said, we were all really well-versed in sports, all the sports. We were high-level guys. We played the best competition, but we couldn't win because we didn't grow up playing handball. In '76, we didn't have much of a chance to win because we couldn't get together and play a lot. We were kind of weekend warriors. In '84, they had the great opportunity to be together for a couple of years. They had really good teams, and they couldn't win when you get to the highest level. In '96, these guys trained for 2.5 years. They had $1 million budget, the men and the women. They traveled around. They spent, I think it was 6 weeks in Hungary or Yugoslavia or somewhere. And they got to the Olympic Games in Atlanta. I think they won 1 game, but they couldn't win because they never grew up playing handball. And we can all still, right now, I think we're using what's called expats, European players, guys that are stationed over there, live over there, have passports over there, and they're going to represent us in the next World Championships. I'll assure you that they're going to look good, they're going to feel good about their sport, they're going to love playing the game, but they're not going to win. Because you can't win at the highest level if you don't grow up playing. As ex-basketball players, baseball players, whatever, you always revert back to what you grew up doing, and you don't have the fundamentals in place to play a very, very difficult game. It looks like an easy game to play, and it is, and it's a lot of fun, but you can't win when you're playing the best in the world. And if we ever want to win, we got to start playing with kids. They got to be 5, 7 years old. I remember, Michael, when you and I were in Chile for an executive committee meeting, which I was on. I think it was about 2000. And the guy from Chile that ran the federation there was so proud because he said, tomorrow we're going to go watch what's the future of handball in Chile. Chile never beat a team. Brazil dominated everything, and Argentina dominated everything for years and years. And we went to this gym, and it was mini handball, that's what it's called. The guy had a gym full of little kids with parents there who are very, very important in growing kids. And we watched him play, and this guy was grinning ear to ear. Michael and I went back. We couldn't do anything, or we didn't do anything about it. We didn't start mini handball in the States. But Chile beat Brazil here 2016 maybe, took them 16 years. And they ended up beating Brazil, Argentina, and now they can compete at the highest level or at the second level. But it's because they got kids playing many, many years ago, and we don't have that. We still don't have that after 50 years. And I'm part of that. I'm part of that failure. And it all started, I remember that conversation really well with Pete Buning saying, well, we got really good athletes, we'll win medals, we'll be on TV, everybody's going to want to play. It doesn't work that way. So I encourage everybody in this room, everybody that might watch this, the Federation now, who I know is listening to or taking orders from the USOC, you got to win medals, guys, you got to win medals. Not in handball. In 1996, when I got to be president, the first thing I did was at our board meeting, I told the board that my thought was that we shouldn't even play in the Olympics for the next 2 sessions. We need 12 years to start a kids program. And believe me, I almost got thrown out of the office that day because everybody wants to be an Olympian. And being an Olympian is a great, great thing, but it doesn't win when you don't learn how to play when you were a young kid. So I encourage, again, everybody to start playing handball at an early age. The other message I want to leave besides starting kids is that we have to be more generous in our giving. I know that there were a lot of people here, or there are some people here, who helped fund this particular dinner and this award that I'm getting and that Jim got tonight. And it's a great thing the AHA is doing. But we got to have more funding from the people that benefit from the sport. You know, I've traveled to 35, 40 countries, played in 2 world championships and 2 Olympic games. Probably because I did all these things and paid a lot of it out of my own pocket was because I wanted to give back to the sport that gave so much to me, has given so much to me. Some of our Olympians, World Cup players, people that go overseas on other people's money, they don't seem to care about what's happening in your sport, in our sport. And I encourage men and women to be more generous in their giving. I have handball in my will, and I don't expect to have a whole lot of money left because of handball. But if I do, handball is going to be in my will. They get a little chunk, but some guys, a little chunk's going to be a lot. You don't have to put them in your will, but when you get a call from AHA or you get a good reason to give handball money, we should open up our wallets better. And again, I've been on this fundraising kick for a long time, so I know who gives and who doesn't, or I knew who gave and who didn't. And we need all our athletes, and again, I'm going to say this, and this might not be the right place to say this, but we got to get our women giving too, and our women more involved. Look around this room. My good girlfriend, Kimberly, Billy's girlfriend, Jim's wife. Where are the women? Where are the women that played all the time and from 84 to 96, let's say? We gotta get more involved, guys. I've given my heart and soul to the game because I love the game and I want to pay back. And I want more people to do that. They don't have to do what I do or what I did, which is give a lot. And Mike's given his life. Jim's given a lot of time. But there aren't enough of us. I think that the guys that are putting on this thing, and I know Mark now with the AHA, he's doing a great job giving back. It's hard to give, and you look around and you see your friends and they don't give. The one thing that happens with Olympic athletes and maybe national team athletes, and Rick and Bob, they've been part of this. I was probably the only guy that carried on, but what happens in 72 and 84 and in 96, when we had really, really good guys, good teams, good girls, good teams, is after the games they go home, and rightfully so. They get married, they get a job, and they give up handball. And it just can't happen that way. You got to find a place in your life for the game that gave you so much. But it hasn't happened, and we've got to encourage each other. And for you guys in this room, you gals in this room, find a way to give back. It's really, really important to help the sport. I've often had people tell me, why should I give handball some money? They waste it all. That's not true. It's hard, especially in Michael's case, when he had the whole world, all the states, I should say, trying to ask him for money. If you want to give some money to handball, give it to the foundation. Rick Hurst, they do a great job. The guy named Rod Oshida, who's an '84 Olympian. They hand that money out and they do a really good, fair job. But give something back to the game. And if you can't give it to the game, start a program and have the kids play handball. Then we'll turn out to be winners. And I'm going to tell you the last thing, that handball is the greatest game in the world. I was a great athlete when I grew up, playing a lot of sports. I've never played a game as good as handball. And I think Rick and Bob and the guys that played in '84 and '96 and the girls would say the same thing. There's no better game in the world than handball. Some of these games might be fun. That's good. But handball has everything. Hard-hitting, fast-paced, high-scoring, and the greatest guys and the greatest gals in the world. Thank you for this honor. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Dennis. Really appreciate your candidness and opening yourself up and telling us like it really, real how it is. We have a guest call in. Joel Volkert would like to say some things to Dennis.
Hey, Dennis. I'm sorry I couldn't be there, but I want to congratulate you on the Founders Award. You're well deserved. You're a special friend, and I love you to death. Congratulations.
Dennis, I just wanted to comment on a couple things. Cal Heat, we've won the national championship the last 2 times, and our board of directors have had some very serious meetings about that. And they're sort of hollow victories because we're not developing young players. And the board of directors realizes that and realizes we have to take our resources and spend it on young kids and develop young kids. And I think that's the attitude we have to take in handball to really get this thing off the ground. I also want to say that the military has done so much for handball. We want to reach out again to the military and see if we can get their ROTC programs involved in team handball playing. In San Francisco, we have 600 high school students in the ROTC program. We've reached out to them, and we're trying to get them to play. We'd also like to do it at the college level to get some competition with ROTC versus the academies, with West Point, Mike Cavanaugh at Air Force Academy, to kind of create those synergies and those competitive environments and those relationships that you guys were able to have when you were in the military. I'd like to end everything here with a prayer. Again, being from San Francisco, I wanted to give a prayer of peace from St. Francis. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. O divine Master, grant that I may not so much seek, to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life. Amen. Thanks everyone for coming. Everybody, we have some T-shirts still available, so if you want to grab another T-shirt, please help yourself over here in the bags.